hope by now you settled in at the Grove Park and that you're ready to do some hard work. As I had a long-standing commitment to be in England in June, I can't be with you, but I will be with you via this video. Dr. Taylor asked me to participate in the meeting by having a video and talking some about Caesar, my recollections of him, talk about the way that the foundation has operated so far, talk about some of the problems I see rising in the, not near term, but in the long-term future, and some of the opportunities I see. I think that Caesar would be proud of the way you have handled the foundation. He wouldn't tell you so. He would tell you some of the things that he does not or would not agree with. But he would secretly be very proud of what you've done. The family has been drawn together. You have proceeded with care and caution. You have all participated. You have handled the investments with caution and care. And thanks to a rising market, the investment portfolio has risen to where it's now about $46 million. The grant making has gone well. You've been careful with that. We have been doing what I call nickel and diming. That is 5,000 and 10,000 at first. And now over the period of years when you've learned to crawl and then walk and then run, you're able to act collectively as a group and take on much larger projects. Who would have thought years ago that you would have given the school system $1.8 million to influence the action of the state of North Carolina and the county school system? At the beginning, you wouldn't have thought that possible, but you've worked together collectively so you can take on larger projects. Caesar would not have agreed with all the things you had given money to. But that doesn't make any real difference. He had the wisdom and the forethought to leave in your hands, not his hands from the grave, but in your hands, the ability to react to problems as they exist today. And that will be the case when the children are succeeded by the grandchildren. Those on the board at that time who act as directors and trustees will be making the decisions on what ought to be done then. I knew Caesar as a businessman. We got along well together as two businessmen. We worked on the hospital. I should tell you that when he invited me to come on the hospital board, he sent word that he was going to retire from that board at age 70. He was going to do that because he wanted doctors to retire at age 70. He said when he retired, he wanted another cold-blooded SOB on the board. And he looked to me. I had never thought of myself just that way, but I suppose he saw in me pretty clearly how I conduct most business matters. I watched him run Cone Mills, which was, when he took it over, was not an easy thing to do. Worked with him when he was president of the United Way, and I've been working with the United Way probably for at least 40-some years. He became president, and I was the vice president, and we had some high times together straightening out all the charitable institutions in Greensboro. He and I never had a crossword, and I don't know why. We seemed to get along, just hit it off right from the beginning. But he was not universally liked. Caesar did not suffer fools gladly. He studied problems. He was prepared to take on anybody. He was not a visionary, but he had great vision. And he had great vision because he had grown up in Greensboro. He knew the history of Greensboro probably better than any man who ever lived here. He knew the root causes of every problem in town. He knew who were the good guys and who were the bad guys. So when others got involved addressing a problem, he sometimes became very short with them because he knew the forces that had acted to bring us to a given point, and he knew what the solutions were going to be. So he was sometimes very short with people. Some people would say he was rude and abrupt and cold. I never found him that way. He kept a sort of shell around him. I don't know what formed all the things that formed his personality, but he kept a shell around him, and I think that may have been to keep a distance. Inside, he was not, I say soft, and I hope you understand what I mean. He was soft when I went to him and explained what needed to be done for poor groups in this town. His brother, Ben, was a different person altogether. Ben was almost beloved. Ben was on the council. Ben was mayor. And anytime that I needed something for the arts or for some liberal cause, I'd go to Ben, and Ben would say to me, it'd take 30 minutes, and Ben would say to me, do you want me to sell some of the stock in my company? I said, Ben, don't do that. It would collapse our company if you sold stock. Sell off some of that J.C. Penney. When I went to see Caesar about different matters, I budgeted, and you'll laugh, I budgeted 3 hours because Caesar liked an audience and he liked to recall the problems. So when I'd come in, he'd be sitting at his desk, very plain office. I think it was linoleum on the floor. And he would say, with that cigar in his mouth, Bill, why are you out here? And I would explain to him that we had a problem in this town and that he could be very helpful. He would then want to go, and did give a long history of how that problem arose. And he and I would reminisce about it because I would have been looking backward too. But he was generous. When I left the office, he had made a commitment financially. He was a conservative investor, and he did very well, and he accumulated great wealth, and he and Martha left a good part of that to this foundation, and he did it because he had trust in his descendants. Now let me talk to you a little bit about how you've done. I think by and large you've done very well. You don't remember these things, but you learn not to take votes on individual issues, that you arrived at decisions on grants by consensus and after discussion, and that you only at the end of a meeting you formally voted. You may think of that as a little thing, but that's the way foundations, particularly family foundations, ought to work. The thing that I see coming is that you need to move away from the smaller grants, because building the foundation and having all of you get experience in giving away large sums of money, we needed to play's not the word, but we needed to deal with smaller sums so that if we make mistakes, they weren't big mistakes. You now have the experience in giving away wealth that you can make major decisions. One of the things that I've been considering and dealing with in my own mind is that Greensboro suffers from lack of vision by our political leaders and by our business leaders and by our school system leaders and by our school boards and our city council. Greensboro suffers from lack of vision. Caesar had vision. Caesar was a mover and a shaker. He got things done. Look at that magnificent airport. It wouldn't be there. It wouldn't be what it is today if Caesar had not been a tough SOB and just got things done. We don't have that today. The business community somehow doesn't see the forces that are going on in this town. I'm thinking about putting together a bunch of foundations, or some of us personally, employing the best consultants we could get in the United States, or a team of consultants, to look at Greensboro and see what I already see so clearly. There are forces working on Greensboro that are going to make this a terrible place to live. In 5 years from now, in 10 years, and 20 years from now, the problems are going to be huge. 5 years from now, the textile industry may not be in Greensboro. That's harsh to say, and most people won't. I don't know anybody who says that publicly besides somebody like me. White oak plant may not be there in 5 years. Let's hope it is, but it may not. Textiles are gone as a place to provide employment. They're on the way out. Tobacco is on the way out. Furniture is on the way out. You'll see tobacco products made in other countries and sent in here for assembly and marketing. The school systems are, going to hell in a handbasket in this town. And this is just an old crockety guy telling you this. There's been a Greensboro Day School has a kindergarten through high school going, and those who can spend $10,000 a year per student send their children there. The Catholics are planning a new high school here. There will be a Jewish academy built here. There are Christian day schools springing up, Christian schools, not day schools, springing up all around town. We have to say to people coming into Greensboro, working on firms we can attract to come here, by the way, don't send your kids to public school. You'll have to ante up $10,000 per child to send them to a private school. That just kills getting people to come to Greensboro. 10 years from now, the school system will be mostly poor whites, blacks, and Spanish. And you'll see the wealth of Greensboro going into these private schools. Jeb Bush, the governor of Florida, ran on a campaign of giving vouchers to everybody and taking them from funds that would otherwise be used for schools. That's already passed and is law down in Florida. How far away is that in North Carolina? The school systems are going to be a mess. And our uncontrolled expansion without planning. Greensboro is the only major city in North Carolina that doesn't have long-range planning. We have got to force the city to do long-range planning. One way to do all this is so that everybody sees the forces working on this town is to have an independent study done and say, look, if we don't take action, this is what we're going to be in 10 years and 20 years. My grandchildren are going to have a terrible time trying to make a living in Greensboro. What I'm coming to with this pitch is we ought to start thinking bigger in the foundation rather than relying on these agencies to come to us with ideas. You are now at the point where you can do this, and you have, through Dr. Taylor, you've got somebody who is involved and can be very helpful. We can join forces with other foundations. This is what I see as a great opportunity. The problem I see is that members of the family may lose interest in the foundation. It's very difficult to live in Ohio or California or around the United States and not have grown up in Greensboro or have lost contact and be interested in carrying out the distribution of the family wealth here in Greensboro. Caesar, I think, planned it that way. He thought that you'd be spending money here forever. But you've got to think through that. If you're going to spend the family money in Greensboro, you want it to have real clout. You're doing that with the school program. And you could see that when you visited. You could see the results. But if you want to have real clout, you've got to go after bigger things and so that everybody can see that we must take action in Greensboro. So you got lots of opportunities. It'll be lots of fun. I can't think of anything else to say to you. I hope you do well. I know you will do well. And I know Caesar and Martha would be very proud of what you have done so far.